This 3-inch lift kit from Freedom Off-Road gives you all of the things you need to lift your 2012 to 2018 four-wheel drive Ram 1500 and give it the performance and stability it needs. This is a complete kit that is easy to install and enhances your truck's off-road performance without sacrificing on-road manners or sacrificing your wallet. Now, before we dive in too deep here, just a quick note on fitment. This kit is designed to fit all 2012 to 2018 four-wheel drive Ram 1500s that are not equipped with the factory air suspension. Now, as you probably already gathered, this is a full 3-inch front and rear lift kit. It's going to give you that more aggressive stance you're looking for while also leveling out the truck so it's going to sit nice and even front to back. That means you can fit some pretty chunky tires on here. Specifically, we're going to recommend 33-inch tires so you have plenty of options and so they don't make any contact with the trim or bumper of your truck. Now, to get that extra 3 inches of lift in the front, you get a set of fully assembled struts with new springs, shocks, and top mounts. Not only does that make things super easy when it comes to installation, but everything is designed to work together perfectly. That is helped by the inclusion of these new upper control arms, which are angled to better accommodate that extra height, so there's no binding or alignment issues. These come with all new bushings and OE style ball joints as well, so you get that additional height, but you won't compromise your truck's ride quality or handling. The shocks here are high pressure twin tube nitrogen charged units, so the damping performance is better than what you get stock, and these are tuned specifically for your truck. That also means that the ride quality is going to be similar to stock, so if you're taking your truck off-road, these can handle whatever you want to throw at them, and they're not going to beat you up on the ride back home. The springs, both front and rear, are where you get that additional height, and again, these are designed for lifted applications, so they give you that additional height without making the ride all crashy. Now, for the rear, you get a matched set of shocks and some new springs too to complement the fronts and give you that height. The springs in the rear are actually progressive. Yes, I do have these upside down just so they'll stand up on their own. So as these compress, that means that the spring rate is effectively going to get stiffer, so your truck is not going to get all wallowy when it's under load. Now, as far as lift kits go, this one is rather complete, giving you everything you need and really nothing that you don't. The shocks feature powder-coated aluminum housings and chromed hardened piston rods attached to 40mm diameter pistons. The springs are made from cold wound steel, and these are finished, of course, in this nice glossy black powder coat for additional protection. Plus, you get new hardened rubber bushings on those rear shocks as well, and again, you get those new top mounts too. The control arms are made from 1.5-inch diameter steel tubing with a 2-layer E-coat finish, as well as replaceable OE-style ball joints and more hardened rubber bushings. And there are also gussets welded onto the pivot points and at the ball joint mount as well for some additional strength. So as far as lift kits go, this thing is pretty strong and it's well put together. And that makes the pricing even more sweet. Coming in at about $900, that makes this a really affordable lift kit, especially considering the height and all that is included. If you want good on and off-road performance with that additional height, this kit is a really great way to get it for a really good price. Installation is going to get a 2 out of 300 difficulty meter, and the job should take you maybe a little over 3 hours to complete. Everything here is designed to bolt right into place, so you don't need to make any additional modifications to your truck. And you don't even need access to a spring compressor since the front struts come fully assembled. We're going to walk you through that install process right now, so for that, let's head on out to the shop.
For this install, you will need various impacts, a ratchet, 3/8 to 1/2-inch adapter if necessary, a swivel adapter, an extension, 8, 13, 15, 16, 18, shallow and deep 21, 22, and 36mm sockets, a 15mm ratchet wrench, 21mm wrench, 15/16 wrench, a sacrificial 21mm wrench, a breaker bar, various pry bars, a ratchet strap, bungee cord, a dead blow mallet, a ball peen hammer, and also not shown here is a couple pole jacks or jack and jack stands.
What's up, folks? Today we're going to be doing a lift kit on a Ram, so let's get started. All right, guys, so we've got the truck in the air, we've got the wheels off, and the first thing we're going to do is we want to take some weight off of our knuckle because we're going to be unbolting that from our control arm. So we're going to pop our caliper off of the hub as well as the rotor. What you want to do first, make sure this ABS line is out of its little grommets. That's going to relieve all the tension from it. Then we're going to remove the caliper and bracket. So it's got two 21mm bolts holding it in place back here. So we've got our 21mm socket on our impact. We'll run these off. Now you want to make sure you loosen both of these up before you remove one, otherwise the torque is going to move it around and it's going to be kind of inconvenient. And we're going to throw a caliper hanger tool onto the frame that's going to hold our caliper out of the way and not put tension on our brake line. Pop our bolts out. And you want to support your caliper as you remove these bolts Swing this off of our rotor. Get this over here. Put our hanger on our caliper. We'll hook that onto our frame. It's going to keep everything out of the way. Now once we have that off, we can remove our rotor, set that aside. Next we're going to remove the nut for our sway bar end link on our lower control arm. We've got our 18 mil socket. We'll pop this off. That's going to allow this to drop down and give us the length we need for our new strut when we put it in. Now we're going to remove the nut for our upper ball joint to our knuckle. And we're going to grab our 21 mil socket and swivel adapter with an extension. Now we're not going to run this all the way off just yet. We're going to leave it on a couple threads like so. Now we're going to need to unseat our upper ball joint from our knuckle. So we're going to grab a hammer and just give this a few taps on our knuckle. Once that pops free, we'll be able to remove it. Now we can fully remove our nut. Push up on our upper control arm. Get our knuckle free. I'm just going to set that nut right back on our stud. Next we're going to remove our outer tie rod nut with our 21 mil socket. Again, we're going to leave that on a couple threads, just like so. We'll give this a few taps as well to unseat that. Once that unseats, remove that nut. Slide this up and out of the way. You can put that nut right back on. Now we're going to support our knuckle because we're going to need to remove the lower strut bolts. So we want to not have all the weight just drop onto our lower control arm. So we're going to take a bungee cord, hook this onto our frame, like so. Now we can remove the lower strut mounting bolt. Now we're going to take our 21 millimeter socket and a 15/16 wrench. Get this off. Work this out. All right, so to make it a little bit easier to remove our strut, we're going to first remove our upper control arm. We're going to be replacing this anyway, so that works. Now we're going to grab our 18 millimeter socket on our ratchet. You may have to pull your fender liner out just a hair to get onto this. Grab our 19 millimeter wrench. So now we've got our 18 millimeter socket and ratchet on our bolt head. You may have to pull your fender liner up just a bit to get to that. And we've got our 21 millimeter wrench. And we'll break this loose. Now this is a flag nut, but it also does help to hold the wrench on there so this doesn't spin around and hit anything. So that is going to help you when you tighten it back up. Now we'll leave that bolt in and do the same thing on this side. Now for your front bolt, you do have a ground strap and some harness here to contend with. You do have plenty of room to get to your bolt head, you just want to be careful. Again, it does have a flag nut, so. Now sometimes these can be pretty tight, so we've got a breaker bar. Get this started. Once we have that loose, we'll bring our ratchet back. Pull our flag nut and this bolt out. Get the bolt out of the back one. We can remove our upper control arm. Now we're going to take our 15 millimeter ratchet wrench and remove the 3 upper mounting nuts for our strut. And we're going to leave that one on a few threads while we get the other 2 off. That's going to help support our strut. Got one more back here. Now we'll support our strut and get this last one off. Now we did release our bungee cord because we need a little bit more room from our axle. So bring this up. Now you may find that your lower control arm needs to come down just a little bit more. So what we're going to do is loosen up our axle nut. We're not going to fully remove it. So we've got our 36mm socket. Keep that on a couple threads. Then we can push our axle back. That's going to give our knuckle a little bit more room for play. Now we'll support strut. Pop that out. And once you have this side off, you can repeat the same process for the other side. Now we can get our new strut in place, so we'll line up our upper mounting studs. We're gonna get one of our nuts on to hold this in place. Then we're gonna need to pull down on our knuckle and lower control arm. You may need to release your bungee cord to get enough throw. Again, you want to push in on your axle when doing this so that you don't pull your axle out. Once you get that in, we'll get it lined up. Now we'll get this lined up. This is going to be a little bit tough at first. We'll get our other two nuts up top now that it's in the bucket. So in order to help us bring our strut into position at the lower mount, we're going to tighten up the rear two mounting nuts at the upper perch. Again, we've got our 15mm ratchet wrench. This is going to help bring this into place. Now we're going to get our lower mounting bolt in for our strut. Now you will need a small pry bar for this because it is kind of a pain. We're going to wedge this up into place, work this over. You want to get that bolt lined up. Have to exercise a little bit of patience with this. Now once you get your bolt all the way through, you can reinstall your factory nut. Now we're not going to tighten that down just yet. Next we can get our new upper control arm in. Now these are marked L and R for left and right. So left is going to be your driver's side. We'll stick this in place. We'll get our factory hardware back into place. Get both of our bolts through since these are flag nuts. Grab our flag nuts. Now this one you can pretty much just get started like so. This one you're gonna have to pull the bolt back enough to get this nut in and lined up. And get that started. And once we get those started, we're gonna grab our 18mm socket on our ratchet again. We're going to snug these down. And once this starts to get a little snug, you want to hold your control arm up into a position where we're going to be able to get our knuckle in. Like I said, we're not going to fully tighten it, just want it to be able to hold position. As you can see, that's got some tension on it. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Sometimes you can tighten these down a bit by hand depending on how good your threads are. Now we'll get our knuckle lined up with our upper ball joint. You may have to move this a little bit. These ball joints are pretty stiff out of the gate. So we'll get our washer and our lock nut started. Now we're going to tighten this nut down and get our ball joint seated with our 22mm socket on a ratchet. Next, we're going to tighten down our axle nut, pull that back in place. And we can reinstall our outer tie rod. Get our nut back on, tighten that back down with our 21mm socket. Now you want to leave your sway bar end links for last. Now you will notice that we did take off the upper mounting nut. That is a 16mm socket. You can do it from either way. Sometimes it's just a little bit easier to loosen it up from both ends. Now we'll tighten up our lower strut mount bolt. So we've got our 15/16 wrench and our 21mm socket. Now we'll reinstall our brakes. So we'll get our rotor back onto our studs. We can get our caliper back in place, line that back up over the rotor, and get our 21mm bolts back into place. So we'll get these tightened back down with our 21mm socket. And we'll get our ABS line back in place. Make sure it goes back into that grommet. Get that tucked away. Next, we'll go ahead and fully tighten down our upper control arm bolts. Get our 18mm socket. Just make sure they're nice and tight. Now our last step is going to be our sway bar end links. Now one thing to note is you want to make sure you have both sides done before reconnecting these. Once you have those done, if you took it off from the bottom, you'll use the 18mm socket to put that back on. Put it on. If you took it off from the top, you'll need to line this back up. Once you have that line back up, you get your bushing. Get that back into place. This is going to be at a steeper angle. Just keep that in mind. And your upper washer and your 16mm nut back on. We'll tighten that back down with our 16mm socket. Now once you have everything done on this side up to your sway bar end link, you want to repeat this process for the other side. Alrighty folks, that about wraps up our review and install of our Freedom Off-Road 3-inch front lift struts with upper control arms and rear lift springs and shocks for your 12 to 18 four-wheel drive Ram 1500 without air ride. Thanks for watching, and as always, for everything Ram, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.